Alright, this is a petroleum product sales agreement, Exhibit 10.7. Um, Petroleum Product Sales Agreement, unbranded term RAC. Petroleum Product Sales Agreement, agreement that determined effective May 1st, 2013, effective date entered into between the CSD Marketing and Supply Company, Valrio Marketing and Supplies Company, seller with each of the buyer and seller referred to here individually as party and collectively as parties. Term of the term agreement, the term shall be the effect of the date with the April 30th, 2028 expiration date per of each retail station listed Exhibit A. Term of the site will end with on the site expiration date listed on Exhibit A for the site. To purchase and sales, seller agrees to sell, deliver, and buyer agrees to purchase, receive the sale of the product with the product describes Exhibit A, collective of the products, each individually as a product, in accordance with the terms of the provision agreement itself, with the obligation of the agreement expressly contained under the buyer, satisfying the seller credit and other financial requirements, the general term and condition, the general term and conditions set forth attachment B is incorporated herein for the purposes for volume requirements of the delivery point and early calendar month during the term. Seller agrees to sell, the buyer agrees to purchase with not less than 85%, no more than 115% of the volume range for ratable monthly value, or the monthly volume allocated to each site that has not reached the site expiration date, each of the relevant term locations set forth in Exhibit A, each of the delivery point where each product delivered FCA to the buyer. The volume product purchased will determine if it's sold with the amount set forth with the net billing generated with the delivery point. Exhibit A will be updated with the mutual agreement of the parties in accordance with the terms set forth with the master agreement dated May 1st, 2013 between parties of the master agreement. 5. The price and payment. By agreement to pay seller with the price of the specified in Section 5.3, the master agreement, the price for all of the product purchased with an agreement is within 10 days after the date of the relevant bill landing, notwithstanding anything contrary contained here and or contain any other agreement between the parties. Buyer shall pay for the seller on the demand amount with equivalent to any of the all collectively the fees, taxes, duties, charges, fees, any of the all increasing thereon, which are now hereafter imposed directly and indirectly and extends to the respect of the measure by parties any material contained with the product with the on or the inspection, production, manufacture, sale, purchase, storage, transportation, delivery, other handling of the product or material contained with on the products or any feature of there otherwise relating to the agreement. The fees are not included in the price and will be billed separately line item of each invoice. Default termination agreement that may be terminated by either party upon 30 days of the written oath of material failure by other party comply with the term and condition of the agreement, specifically include but not limited to the failure of the buyer purchase product within the volume range, in which case the seller may, in its discretion, either terminate the agreement in either with respect to the relevant delivery point at which the buyer is failing to purchase within the volume range. 7. Underlifting and overlifting, in addition with any of the right seller that they may have under this agreement as a result of the buyer's failure to purchase product within the volume range. If the buyer fails to purchase at least 85% of the monthly volume for the given product with a given delivery point, the seller sold the discretion upon written notice to the buyer underlifting notice. Seller may reduce the monthly volume thereafter required to be sold or delivered by seller to buyer at the actual amount purchased. The buyer, the adjusted monthly value with which amount will be stated in the underlift notice. If the buyer's purchase is more than 115% of the monthly volume or given the product, give the given delivery point and given the month of the lifting month, the seller delivering written notice to the buyer overlift notice may be not required to impose an additional per gallon charge. The overlift charge of the product purchased except for the lifting month's monthly value with the overlifted volume for the purpose of calculating overlift charge of the applicable for the overlift volume shall be run it up with the next number that is divisible by 10,000. Ultimately specify that overlift no seller may impose the overlift charge with a delay basis. Weekly basis of the meeting overlift charge must be paid with each of the gallon product purchased by the buyer during lifting month. Exceeds a detailed rateable volume that is set forth in the overlift notice after the date of the fourth of the overlift notice. B. A weekly rateable volume set forth in the overlift notice after the date set forth in the overlift notice. Buyer agrees to pay for the overlift charge as imposed by the seller in accordance with the section. Overlift charge shall be in addition to all other amounts owed by the buyer under the agreement. 8. Miscellaneous. Notices all notice required by permit by otherwise related with the agreement shall be written and sent with a fast mail overnight carrier hand registered certified mail return receipt requested with all postage fully paid with the relevant parties and address set forth below with the signature block below. Party may change with the provide additional information notice information to the other with the give of the notice and form with the section notice shall be deemed to have the received the party one if delivered by hand sent by overnight with the carrier with the day of delivery of the business day if not the business day immediately following with the business day 2 if sent by registered certified mail return receipt requested on the day of the receipt 3 of the transmitted by fastball on the time of the transmission with the answer back configuration confirmation receipt. B. Counterparts, fast mail. Signatures parties may execute with agreement of multiple counterparts, each of which constitute with the original, all which consecutively constitute one agreement. The signature of all the parties need to appear on the same counterpart of delivery. Execute with the counterpart signature page by fast mail, electronically sent, scan, transmittal, effect for the execution for all purposes done with the agreement of buyer until it has executed the agreement to be effective for all purposes effective date. And for instance, we have the exhibit the buyer would be CTS Marketing Supply and Company buyer, Kimberly Bowers, named Bowers, Chief Executive Officer, President. Notice of the buyer, Intention Market, 1 Valley Road, San Antonio, Texas, and then the seller, Vero Marketing Supply, Joseph Gorder, Title President, Notice Valley Road Marketing Supply Company, Intention Wholesale Marketing, Unbranded, 1 Valley Road, Wade, San Antonio, Texas, 78249, faxes, and, Exhibit A, Petroleum Product Sales Agreement, shows the city, preliminary, secondary, Site, City, ST, Preliminary, Secondary, Annual, January, February, March, and 12 years site expiration date. And, Exhibit B, Petroleum Product Sale Agreement. In general terms, conditions with petroleum purchase, product purchase, and sales. 1. Composition of the agreement, the general term condition for the petroleum product, and purchase for the sale with the general term that shall apply with agreement with the Valro Marketing Supply Company with the Valro with the buyer to which the general terms are attached, specifically incorporated by the reference to the agreement as special provisions, meaning with all the provisions of the agreement include the amendments except for the general terms. If there is a conflict between special provisions, if the general terms of the special provisions will govern with the special provision with the general terms are referred to collectively as the agreement, the capitalize of the term, which are used to otherwise define the general term shall have the meaning described within the special provisions. 2. The definition. Using agreement, the following terms shall have the following means affiliate with the means aimed at the either directly, indirectly control with the by or under its common control with the reference, and include reference at any party with the definition of the control means with the power with the direct with the management policy with any of the entry directly, indirectly with the ownership of the voting security by contract or otherwise. API means American Petroleum Institute. Applicable law means for the applicable statute, law, regulation, ordinance, rule, judgment, rule of the law, the order, decree, including without limitation any consent, decree, permit, approval of the license requirement, any other government restriction, any similar form of the decision, with any other provision and condition of any permit, the license, or of the operating authorization issued under any of the foregoing or by or any determination by any governmental authority having an assertion jurisdiction over the matter in question, whether now or hereafter in effect in each of the cases amended, include without limitation all of the terms of provision of the common law such as the government authority and interpreted and enforced in time of question. ASTM means ASTM and internationally formerly known as American Society of Testing Materials. Barrel as BBL means of 42 U.S. gallons measured 60 degrees Fahrenheit. BBD barrels per day, business day, the means of the day of which the banks you open the government commercial business in New York. And New York carrier means either barrier, the third party hired buyer who takes possession of the product purchased by the seller under the agreement of the day means the period of 24 consecutive hours beginning with ending is 1 minute over 00 hours San Antonio, Texas time. Force majeure means any call to the end in event with a reasonable beyond the control of the party, include but limiting with the general such term the act for the god peril of the sea fire, delay of the performing vessel, the rising breakdown adverse, whether the accident closing with a restriction upon using mooring facilities, decks, ports, pipeline harbors over the navigable transportational mechanisms, war declared, undeclared, military operation, blockade, revolution, disruption or breakdown of or explosion accidents, well storage plants, refinery, terminal, machinery, other facility with trade restrictions, strike, lockouts, or dispute the difference with the workers' labor shortage require the order action with any of the government or by any person purporting to represent any of a government or any other cause of a similar nature described, but herein not reasonably with the control of the respective parties. K. A gallon U.S. gallons of 231 cubic inches at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. governmental authority means the federal, state, local, foreign government, of the provisional department, and other political subdivision thereof, the entity of the body authority for the exercising executive, legislative, judiciary, regulatory, administrative, or other governmental function, any of the court, department, commission, board, bureau, agency, instrumentality, adversary, administrative board, any of the foregoing. Guarantor means a respect of the party of third party who is guaranteed one or more obligation of the party under this agreement. In so terms shall mean with the 2010 edition of the trade the terms published for the International Chamber of Commerce which shall be applied with agreements to extent that they do not afflict with the provisions agreement of the DAP and FCA. Any other INCRO means with agreements shall have the meaning given with the INCO terms. Independent inspector. When duly licensed person or firm and appointed with the agree with the seller and buyer with the perform quantity with the quality with the determination respect with the product received and delivered here under the insolvency of the event with the means of the party or guarantee with the party filed with the position otherwise commenced with the authorized with the commencement proceeding a case under bankruptcy reorganization similar level of protection with the creditors. 2. With the head of the position filed proceeding with the or proceeding commenced against the its under bankruptcy reorganization similar level of protection creditors. 3. With the file with the petition the head of the position against pretenders against winding up the liquidation makes the general assignment arrangement of the consumption within for the benefits of the creditors. 5. Seek that becomes some of the appointment of the administrative provisional liquidator conservator, receiver, trustee, the custodian, other similar official of the all or substantially all of its assets. 6. The secured party of the take position all of the substantially all of the assets in distress, the execution, attachments, equestrian or other legal process levied, enforce, and sue on and against the all substantial all of its assets. 7. That becomes insolvent and incapable of paying the debt they fall due by acceleration or otherwise. 8. Fails to give the adequate security for and assurance of the ability to perform obligations here under 3 business days after reasonable request there under. 9. Takes any other action authorized any foregoing or 10. Otherwise becomes bankrupt, insolvent, however the evidence. Q. Interest rate. The mean annual rate based on the 360 a year equals the lesser than 2% of the primary rate is published in the money rates of the Wall Street Journal in effect at the close of the day of business day on which payment was due over the maximum rate permitted by applicable law. Month means the period beginning with the first day of the calendar month, ending with the payment over the first day of the next succeeding calendar month. Taxes means any and all foreign, federal, state, local tax for the duties, fees for the charge for any of every description, including motor fuel, extra for the gasoline, aviation fuel, special fuel for the diesel, with the environmental spill, with the gross earnings, gross receipt of the trail, with the use for the taxes, however it is that needed, paid or incurred with the purchase, storage, exchange, with the transportation, resale, with the importation, exportation, handle with the products provided, however the taxes do not include any tax imposed with the measure of the net profit, the gross for the net income, of the gross receipt, with excluding with the avoidance for the doubt, with the transaction taxes such as sales, gross earnings of the gross receipt with similar tax if they're based upon the gross receipts, gross earning, gross revenues received only from the sale of the petroleum products. 2. Any taxes measured for the capital value, net worth, with whether the denominated franchise taxes, doing business taxes, capital stock tax, and the like. 3. Business likes of the franchise taxes or registration fees of the 4. Any valid and personal property tax. 3. Title and risk loss. Product sold by the FCA with the destiny of the terminal title and risk loss shall be paid past the seller and buyer of the product, past the inlet manifold of the tanker truck with an increase of the bottom loading out flange, loading terminal flexible hole with an cave for the gravity fed at the top of the loading tank trucks. For products sold with the DAP with the title risk loss shall be passable with the seller buyer upon arrival of the tank truck with agreed location designated by buyer. Payment terms. Payments. Any payment hereunder shall be made with the seller pursuant to the payment terms set forth in special provision. All payments shall be made without offset with a discount, deduction, counterclaim with a wire transfer immediately available to funds before the payment is due. Shall forth in special provisions required documentation. Addition with documentation, applicable law supporting documentation shall be filed with 1 invoice, fast amount acceptable, 2 truck bill of landing, certifying the quality of an independent inspector with quality report, fast amount acceptance, interest amount payable to the agreement that shall but not paid when due bear interest in the payment is due until the excluding the date payment is received at an interest rate. D. Split weekend clause with the payment date with the due date falls on a Sunday or on a Monday that is not a business day in place where the payment of business to be made with the payment shall be made available to fund with the seller on the next business day after the check for the payment is due. If the payment due date falls on a Saturday or a non-business day other than a one day in the place where the payment is to be made, the payment shall be made immediately available to funds to the seller on the last business day prior prior to such payment due date. 5. In financial responsibility, expressly subject to the provision section 5.6 of the master agreement, the sufficient credit for the transaction under the agreement is not approved by the seller credit department within 7 days after the first delivery date, thereafter sufficient credit has been provided and the buyer there exceeds such credit limit to sell with the reasonable grounds for the insecurity of the buyer's creditworthiness, performance, and here under the seller may in reasonable discretion require the buyer to 1. Prepare the seller the full amount according to the seller's invoice for the delivery product with a wire transfer immediately available to funds at least 2 days prior to the delivery date. 2. With increase the amount of the letter of credit defined provided in section 5.6 of the master agreement. 3. Provide some other forms of credit support reasonably acceptable to the seller. In event with the above the requirements have not been satisfied with a special time, the requirements seller shall have the option of terminating the agreement or suspending his performance under the agreement until the buyer provides such a payment to sell the delivery of the product here under the buyer making payment of posting letter of credit is provided above shall not operate the waiver seller rights immediately with the imposal of the credit support obligation owned in section 5 at any of the future time, preventing seller from promptly exercising any other option, right, remedy that may have under the terms of agreement. 6. Quantity and quality determination claims. A. Specification of the product sold under the transfer of the agreement. It shall conform with the specifications set forth in the special provision taken into account with the stated tolerance for the product delivered by the pipeline. Shall conform with the transportation pipeline specifications. B. Measurement of the quantity of the product shall be determined in accordance with the latest of the established API ASTM standards for minute delivery. Otherwise specified elsewhere in the agreement of all volumes shall be the temperature corrected to 60 degrees Fahrenheit in accordance with the latest supplement with the dependent of the ASTM IP petroleum measurement tables. Metering system will conform with the API ASTM standard within effect with the relative of the meter calibration accuracy of the party responsible for the meters and temperature probes due to the measurement of the agreement shall ensure that the such parameter meters and temperature probes are calibrated and approved in accordance with the applicable the API ASTM standards about any event with a little less than frequency than once every 6 months. If the other party has reasonable cause, it will have the right to independently certify with its own expense for the calibration of such meter for the temperature probes. C. Quantity the quantity of the product shall be determined either the loading terminal's tank gauge of the weighing scale with the evidence by the bill of lading in accordance with the standard practice for the SG of the loading terminal time and loading quantity shall be either the calculated seller's invoice. Quality. The quality of the product shall be determined in accordance with the latest established API ASTM standards. If available, the quality of the product shall be determined. An automatic volumetric inline sampler has been certified approving the API standard. And if an inline sampler is not available that has not been certified proving the quantity shall be determined applicable to pursuant volumetric composite of the static shore tanks and loading terminal before transfer of the receiving the equivalent evidence by the independent inspector report. The inspection. Each of the parties shall have the right to represent the time of the loading discharge gauging measurement. Such representative must comply with the applicable level of safety procedure with the requirement of the independent inspector with the disprove of the however the independent inspector gauge tests or measurements will be binding upon the parties of absent for all of the manifest error. Unless otherwise agreed, the cost of the independent inspector will be shared equally by the parties. The parties shall make the instruct the independent inspector to obtain and retain appropriate sample of the product with a period of 90 days from the day of the measurement. The representative of the sample customarily should take in the storage tank for which delivery is made in line with the sampler of the quality claims. Any claim regarding the quality and quantity of the product delivered should be waived unless submitted with the selling or writing together with the supporting documentation reasonable details of the facts which claim the basis of the 30 days after the date of delivery. The delivery date should be determined by the bill of lading. Others should be documented as appropriate for the delivery method. Warranty. The seller representative warrants that A as the day of the delivery of the product here under seller has a good title of the product sold delivery free with clear of the lie lien and encumbrance of the other taxes that are due with the buyer and the governmental statutory lien securing payment is not yet due payable. B. The seller has the full right and authority to transfer such title of such products to the buyer with the C of the products conform with the specification except for those expressly stated in the agreement that neither buyer nor seller makes any of the other representation guarantees, warranties, expresses, or included implied warranty, merchantability, and that fitness in particular with the purpose of the applicable, notwithstanding in the course of the performance, course of the dealing, or usage of the trade, lack thereof, inconsistent wherewith seller hereby expressly disclaims any and all representation, guarantee, or warranties expressly implied with the merchantability with the fitness of the product with a particular purpose. 8. Deliveries. Seller should make with the buyer shall receive the deliveries as set forth in special provision time of delivery with itself of the shall prepare with the furnish of the buyer. Copy of the bill of landing, other shipping paper for the buyer shall be made of adequate save of the equipment of except for the product that sold for the purchase of the buyer hereunder should seller reserve the right to the refuse of the delivery any of the equipment of the sold with itself with deems unnecessary or unsatisfactory to receive such deliveries for the delivery of product into a truck. No carrier will be entitled to do action for each of the relevant terminal uses until the carrier into the the facility access agreement within the operator thereof that provides also all necessary documentation, including without limitation certificate, evidence of required insurance coverages required hereby with the operator's discretion. In or addition, buyer shall only take the such delivery during delivery facility usual business hours. 9. Hazard warning responsibility. Seller should provide with the buyer material safety data sheet for each product delivered here under with the buyer acknowledges that there may be a hazard associated with loading, unloading, transportation, handling, usage of the product sold with the here under, which may require the warnings communicated other precautionary action taken. All person handling coming in contact with or with any of the concern with the product sold here under buyer assume that it is to employees, independent contractors, subsequent purchase of the product sold here under all the responsibility for such necessary warnings of the contrary measure relating to hazard person property associated with the product sold here under. There, furthermore, buyer shall defend its own at the expense of identify with the fully hold the harmless and seller and affiliates and their agents, office directors, employee representatives, such as assigned from and against any of the loss arising out of any manner of the related with the buyer's failure to provide necessary warning or other precautionary measures in connection with the product sold here under that is provided above. 10. Compliance with the applicable laws. General seller and buyer we achieve the agree with the comply with the fully performance agreement with the applicable laws, included but not limited to the effect of the federal, state, of the local regulation, applicable fuel, and added with the coverage with the agreement, included not limited to the viability requirements of the oxygen, the reformulated gasoline, low sulfur requirements, and hereby certify that the warrants of that end product delivered under the agreement comply with the applicable standard requirements of delivered to the buyer. Buyer shall sell, offer the sale of the dispense supply, offer the supply of the transport in compliance with all federal, state, and local regulations. B. Product compliance. Seller hereby certified that the product delivered for this agreement and complying with the chain of the applicable delivery location delivered to the buyer with each for the delivery of the gasoline seller shall provide with the buyer a certificate of the analysis of the bill of lading, delivery ticket, or loading ticket that certifies the gasoline is compliant with the federal, state, read, vapor pressure requirements applicable at the time of delivery. Each of the deliveries formulated with the conventional gasoline seller should provide a product transfer documentation containing information required with the federal regulations, specifically Title 40 CFR Section 8077, 8106, 8158, and 8171. Such regulations may be modified from time to time. 11. Taxes. General, otherwise specifically provided by the agreement itself, whether shall liable to be any of the and all of the taxes respective of the products delivered here under the taxable instrument which occur before the transfer title of the product to the buyer, unless otherwise specifically provided to him in this agreement, the buyer shall liable for any of all of the taxes with respect to the products delivered here under with the tax incident which occur with the transfer of the title of the products by with the usually specifically provided with the agreement any and all of the taxable incident of which transfer title, regardless of the character, method, the calculation of the measure of the levy, the assessment shall be paid with the party upon the tax imposed with the applicable taxing authority to extend with the party herein referred to as Party X, required by the applicable law to pay with the remit the certain tax on the behalf of the other party herein referred to as Party Y, or Party X, otherwise pay with the taxes for which Party Y is liable. The Party Y shall reimburse Party X to the extent of the Party X paid such taxes. Party Y reimbursement of the taxes to Party X shall be grossed up with the necessary to return the Party X after the payment any of the taxes thereon not actually paid by Party X. A party shall not be reasonable for any of the penalties, interest, related obligation of the other party with respect to the tax extent. Such penalties and interest accrue based on the action of the inactions of the other party, if and ad valorem personal property taxes assessed against the product sold here under the party having the title over the products for the time such for the tax liability assessed shall be reasonable for the payment of such taxes. B. Exemption of the tax forms. If the buyer claimed the exemption for any of the aforesaid tax of the buyer and liens for the payment or for the reimbursement of the tax of itself, the shell of the seller will properly complete with the execute exemption certificate formally and prescribe with the appropriate tax authority. Buyer shall notify the seller in writing and the change of the status of the exemption. Each party shall provide that the other party would properly execute internal review service with a W-9 successor form and appropriate upon execution agreement. Seeking information such that the form becomes materially inaccurate or such form expired becomes obsolete. Each party further agreed to promptly deliver to the other party any other tax form and the certified reasonable requested by the other. 12. Intently deleted identity. Seller and buyer mutually covenant to and shall protect with the defend, identify with the hold each of their respective affiliate directors, officers, agents, contractors, harmless from and against any of the claim to demand suit. The lawsuit include without limitation with the cost of the defense attorney fee, with the penalty, with the interest of the damage causes of actions, liability, every type of the character without regard to the amount with together loss for the cost of the rising for them out of the result from the act of omission with the negligence wrongdoing such identifying with the party, with the officer, with the employee, with the contractor, agents, with the respect, with the purchase, sale, with the exchange, with the products here under, except to the extent of the losses are caused arising out of the result from the acts of the mission, of the negligence, or the wrongdoing of the identified party. 14. Limitation of liability, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained within this agreement, that neither the party shall be liable for the other for the indirect incidental with the consequential lawful damage, specifically with the punitive damage for lawful products are arrived without with the relate to the agreement of the performance of the breach they are within contract tort with the otherwise, except for the breach for the seller warranty obligation under Section 7 of both the seller shall not be liable to the buyer to damage of loss resulting from the buyer's employed with the customer contractor agent's actions or inactions following the delivery of the product itself to the buyer here under, including without limitation proper use of the product, each party's recovery with respect to any claim, loss, expense, obligation, liability here under, pursuant with the terms hereafter, connection with the transaction contemplated hereby shall be limited to direct with damages found from any breach of the other party with the contract, including without limitation, direct damage of the arising from the breach of the warranty obligation within Section 7 above. Further, any of the reason, actions, enforcing rights, and the obligation under this agreement, it must be filed with the court against other party no later than 1 year after the day of the alleged breach of the agreement occurred. 15. Force majeure. The effect of the force majeure of neither party shall be liable for the other party with the render unable to be an event with the force majeure of the performing the whole with the part of the obligation of the condition of the agreement is so far along the event of the force majeure exists and to the extent performance is hindered the event with the force majeure of the provided however the party unable to perform shall be commercially responsible efforts to avoid or remove the event with the force majeure provided however no party shall be compelled to resolve any strike lockouts over the industrial disputes other than they shall be determined to his best interest during the period of the party's performance the obligation under the agreement has suspended whole part of the reason event with the force majeure of the other party likely to make suspend performance of all or part of the obligation except with the suspension of the commercially reasonable except for the payment and indemnification obligations arising prior to occurrence of such force majeure event. Notice an event with the force majeure rendered the party unable to hold with or in part with the carry out of the obligation under the disagreement. Such part with the notifying party must give the other party with the notice party notice fully particular with the rights of assuming the practically occurrence and call for the relied upon and give the notice for the telephone file such with written confirmation within 48 hours of the transaction. Termination of the period of suspending with the force majeure ever shall continue except for 30 days from the date of the notice shall such event given so long as the event is continuing either party with the sole discretion made termination of the unaffected transaction written over the other party. Neither party shall have any other liability the other party in respect of the transaction except for the rights and remedies previously accrued. 16. And default. An event of the default following shall continue with the default of the agreement except for the event with the default with the party, the non-performing part of the obligation for the parties guaranteed by the other part of the guarantor, with the guarantor of such party that fails to make any of the required payment under this agreement when due. The failure continues 3 business days after the receipt of the written notice for the other party. With 2. The party guarantor fails to comply with any of the term or provision covenant of this agreement, including seller failure to deliver prior product and buyer's failure to take delivery product each of them in accordance with the term and condition of the agreement shall not occur or had commenced pursue completion of the occur with due diligence so such failure with intended business days after the rewritten notice of the other party. 3. The party's guarantor is dissolved and or has resolution pay it pass for its winding up. Official management, liquidation of the pursuit of the consolidation, amalgamation, and merger of the forward of the party with the guarantor merger that becomes consolidated when any offer the transfer of the meaning of the all substantial all of the assets within another entity which result of the credit worthiness surveying with the transfer of the entity being materially weaker than that for the non-partying with immediately prior to such action reasonably determined that the other party with the 5 of the party with the guarantor from the disclaim the repudiates reject the whole of the part change the validity and guarantee for the issue for the guarantor. 5 or 6 insolvent events occur within respect with either part of the guarantor. B. Sell failure to delivery unless excused by the event of the force majeure of the event set forth in section 17 and 18 of these general terms of the buyer paid and failure to perform after the event with the default as a result of the seller's failure to deliver the product. Seller shall pay with the buyer to the date payment with the would otherwise due in the respect of the month of the failure incurred with the amount of each for the gallon per barrel as applicable with the products over the deficiency equal to the market price of the buyer except acting in the commercial with a reasonable man with it is able to abstain with the actual purchase with them will be able to FOB at the terminal with the purchase of the otherwise acceptable with the comparable to supply with the product comparable quality with the determined by the buyer in commercial reasonable manner with the plus one cost reasonable incurred with the prior purchase for each of the with the product additional transportation charges even reasonable incurred by the buyer as a result of taking delivery substitute with the product in a location other than terminal minus two with the price agreed with for to relevant transaction except that the difference of the zero and negative neither party shall have the obligation to make with the deficient payment to the other. C. General remedies upon occurrence of the event of the default of the other party may do any one of the following with a limitation of the other rights of the remedies may involve with the other party with the under agreements or otherwise. 1. Apply with the prepayments made with the performance assumed with the posted with the under of this agreement by the non-performing party the other party against any of the amount of the owed with the other party with the under of the agreement. 2. With the other party solve the suspend with the deliveries for the until the amount due for the delivery previous delivery of the buyer has been paid in full with the provided help with the extent of the other party sustaining the actual direct damage of the related with the suspension of delivery of the product. The non-performing party shall pay for the actual direct damage of the other party. 3. With the other party settle the play for the non-performing part of the prepay basis. And 4. Terminate the agreement of any transaction upon giving the written notice to the non-performing party. D. Liquidation of termination. Solve an event with the occur of the party, other party of the affiliate shall with the insolvent discretion for the right to liquidate with agreement any forward contract defined below between any of them non-performing the rights notice to the right in non-performing party as herein terms liquidated contracts made with agreement to any of the federal forward contracts between the other party with any other affiliate of the non-performing party with the actually liquidated is provided herein to occur with the insolvent event with respect with agreement to any other event with the default with the term liquidating party means the other party affiliate with respect to relevant liquidated contract, and the term liquidated date meaning the day of the termination liquidated contracts for each liquidated contract. The liquidated party determines the aggregate of the gain and loss result of the liquidated contract. Each liquidation balanced by the calculating difference between the price specified with the products here there under and market price of the relevant commodity of the day of the liquidation. Term by liquidating party is commercial reasonable manner multiplied by remaining quantities of the product of delivering their under liquidation balance. Each of the liquidated contracts shall be netted by a single sum of the liquidated amount. Liquidated party shall notify the non-performing party. Liquidated amount of the writing of the non-performing party shall pay for the liquidation amount of the relevant party within 1 business day after the notice given. Liquidation amount shall bear interest for the interest rate of the day of the liquidated amount due for this paid. Forward contracts shall the parties acknowledge with agree with agreement to constitute with the forward contract with each of the party with the forward contract merchant, either the party with the here under with the transfer or the settlement payment under U.S. Bankruptcy Code 11, United States Code 101 will attend with the protections benefits. F. Remedies and not exclusive of the other party's rights under the section shall addition with no limitation exclusion of the other rights of the remedy of the other party with agreement and law with the equity with the specifically include any of the rights and remedies under the universal code uniform commercial code with the rights of the liquidation part of the under this section shall addition not limitation exclusion of other rights and remedy liquidation party under the relevant liquidation contract or at law or equity specifically include any of the rights and remedy of the uniform commercial code. 17. Allocation. Seller does not have the supply of the product to meet with such a supply obligation with under this agreement and any other product with such an obligation. Seller may allocate the available supply of the product on a basis of which the seller's sole judgment is fair and reasonable, included but not limited to the allocation made with a historical plan, delivery short crediting with the need of the allocate that may be based on any of the following an event with a force majeure with the actual shortage of product, partial or total interruption, lawful shortage, transportation facility and supply product. C. A shortage and contemplated source of supply the product. D. The general shortage of the seller's product supply system, including supply system and seller's affiliates. Sellers should have no obligation to make any shortage result of the allocation they are under. Hereunder, furthermore, the agreement shall not be construed in any of the way requiring the seller to purchase products, transfer products from any other refinery to supply any of the all the contract volume hereunder. 18. Intentionally deleted. 19. Miscellaneous. Independent contractor performing the respect with the term of the presumed of the agreement is held on the buyer active solely with the independent contractor making complete with the control over the respective employee of the facility with the operation net seller. Neither seller nor buyer authorized to take any action in any way whatsoever on the behalf of the other, except that it may be necessary to prevent injury to the person, property, in accordance with the agreement is contained. Whose cleanup spills and with it may occur the no waiver may be any of the right agreement at any time of the serve waive the same right any future date. And C. The assignment of the buyer may not assign any of the rights due to the obligation provided under this agreement in whole or in part without prior written consent with the sale of the proportioned assignment of the agreement. The violation section will be voided above, notwithstanding. Buyers should have the right to assign the agreement to do an affiliate with the provided written of such assignment with the seller, and so long the buyer expressly remains jointly and severely responsible for the obligations assigned to the affiliate assigner. Amendment. No amendment of the agreement will be effective unless made with a written signed by an officer or other authorized representative of both parties. Severability of the provision of the agreement is unenforceable with the under applicable law, but the provision will be enforced to the minimum extent permitted by applicable law. Remaining provision of the agreement will continue in full force effect. Entire agreement. The agreement represents the entire agreement of the parties with respect to the material matters contemplated by this agreement. G. Audit. Each party and the duly authorized representative shall have the access during the business hour with the accounting with the records other documents maintained by the other party relate to the agreement that shall have the right to own expense of the audit such records reasonable time or times within 1 year after the termination. The agrees however the party can only conduct one audit per year, and the same year cannot be re-audited. At no event shall be the audited party to be obligated to disclose legally provided privileged information. H. Choice of law. Any controversy, course of action is claimed arrive relating to the in connection with this agreement, a breach for the termination validity thereof shall be governed with the substantive of the procedural laws for any of the court or inflicted with the laws, rule of the principles, which refers to the laws of the state of Texas or the law of the other jurisdiction laws of the state of Texas. If the parties specifically agree with the sole jurisdiction for any claim to the state and the federal courts that have jurisdiction thereof located in the Harris County, Texas. UN Convention of the United States, the Convention of the Contracts of International Sale of the Goods should not in any way apply to govern agreement of the transaction of this agreement. Commission and give no director, officer, of the employee, agent of the either party shall give or receive any commission fee, rebate with the gifts and entertainment, a significant with the cost in connection with the agreement. Further, neither party shall make the commission fee with the rebate, gift, and entertainment with significant with any government official or employee with the connection with this agreement. K. U.S. sanctions. The parties expressly agree to comply with the United States laws, regulations concerning the U.S. sanction embargo countries, entities, individuals. Seller warns no country and individual prohibited the U.S. law or the regulation has any time interest in the product sold under this agreement. J. Counterpart of the agreement may execute one or more counterparts. Each will be deemed the original and part of the one same document. M. Construction. Following rule of construction will govern the interpretation agreement. The day, the months, and the years will be the calendar days, months, and the years unless otherwise indicated, including but not limited to the preceding words, phrases. 3. Section titles do not interpretation. 4. The herein, hereunder, and words similar means refer to the agreement in whole, but not in particular provisions agreement. And 5. No rule constructing, interpreting this agreement against the drafter will apply. An attorney's fee in the event that either party found it necessary to bring suit against the party as a result of any dispute arising from the agreement, the prevailing party to show the dispute and entitled to recover in addition such other damage relief as if it has been awarded by court or other forum competent jurisdiction, reasonable attorney's fee, court costs, or other reasonable costs in litigation. And that was an exhibit of Petroleum Product Sales Agreement.